Hello everybody, this is Dotto. Welcome to Not the 51st and our coverage of the Australian federal election. Well, it's official. Anthony Albanese declared on the 28th of March that we will go to the polls on Saturday the 3rd of May. So, now it's time for the parties to get out on the campaign trail so that Australian voters can decide who is best to represent them and who is best to lead the country. Labor is building Australia's future, focusing around the word build, building more houses and building more infrastructure and manufacturing. They also have a strong focus on health, whereas the Liberal Party is focused on getting Australia back on track. They want you all to remember how bad you've had it over the last 3 years. And they want you to know that the Liberals will be better by investing in gas, reducing the public service, and cutting migration. How do the polls look at this point in time? Well, the coalition had started the election year on a high note as the anger on the cost of living was souring voters on the incumbent Labor government. But around the end of February, things started to change. Many things happened around that time, but to briefly summarise, the coalition started to fumble on policy as what they had been putting out refused to stick, and Labor sharpened their message on the back of some promising economic returns. Perhaps the best illustration of this is the YouGov MRP poll, which uses magic to guess the number of seats the parties would win. The poll taken from late January to mid-February put the coalition at 73 seats, just shy of a majority needed to govern. The new MRP, sampled mostly in March, puts Labor at 75. To be clear, it is still really close. The moving average I calculated puts Labor at barely above 50, and many seats are right on the edge. A minority government still appears to be the most likely option, and it could go either way, but as of now, it looks better for Labor than it does for the coalition. So, how many seats are in play? Quite a lot this time. The ABC have outlined 46 key seats to watch, quite a daunting number. I have added 4 of my own to make a total of 50. This is 1/3 of the seats available. If you can generalize the battleground seats into groups, we can probably do it by determining how close to a capital city they are. The inner city seats have some very interesting dynamics, as this is where the Greens and crime-minded Teal independents shine, because these places are populated by younger people as well as socially minded affluent voters. Some urban seats in Melbourne and Brisbane have freeway races because of this. The suburban seats are the big ones to watch, and could well be where the elections are decided. These are the mortgage belts, which have done it tough over the last 3 years, and indeed these are the areas that Dutton thought he could do the strongest. And there does seem to be a lot of anger over the previous years. In reality, however, the picture isn't that simple. For starters, there is a mix of blue-collar tradespeople and white-collar office workers, especially when you get into the middle ring of the city suburbs. While Dutton might have a good shot at speaking to the blue-collar workers, white-collar workers might be harder to win over, especially now that Dutton has gone after public service workers and people who benefit from work-from-home arrangements. No matter the colour of their collar, these are the areas where people are strongly looking for housing and cost of living relief, and policy answers will matter. We can then go out to more outer urban or peri-urban seats. These have traditionally been more blue-collar, and the Liberal Party may have a stronger chance here. Will he pick up some seats, or will Albanese be able to lure them back? Then we have the more regional or rural seats. There isn't a true common thread between them, but there are a few seats around which may hold some surprises, including seats facing a challenge from major parties, and some independent candidates who are closing in on national seats. Let's now go into each seat and give a quick rundown of how they are looking, and my prediction as of the end of March. I have divided the 50 seats into 5 large regions: the Sydney suburbs, regional New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, and the rest of Australia. Let's go ahead and have a look. Here I've divided Sydney into two sections, across the Red Rooster line, if you will. Sydney feels like a collection of villages, more than other cities do, and the northern and eastern suburbs are affluent, traditional Liberal heartland, though it has been ground zero for the teal movement. The southern and western suburbs are some of the most diverse parts of Australia, accommodating vast swaths of Sydney's workers. Let's start with the north and east. Bennelong might be the best news for the Liberals here. It is a very marginal swing seat. It actually straddles the northern and western suburbs, and it was captured by the Labor Party in 2022. But the seat boundaries were redistributed in favour of the Liberal Party, and now the margin is very, very slightly towards the Liberal Party, 0.04%. I'd say, given the Liberal strength in the area this time around, Labor would have to have a very good night to hold this seat, so I'll give it to the Liberals. Other seats in the north and east don't look quite as bright for the Liberals. The Independents hold tight margins for sure, but I don't think Peter Dutton's strategy will do much to change it back. Given the strength of the Teals here, I see them holding on to Mackellar and Wentworth. Bradfield in the northern suburbs may provide the strongest challenge by Teals this time around. Nicolette Boll narrowly lost the last time around, and she has just a 2.5% margin to overcome. I could be wrong, but I believe the Independent will take it this time. For the southern and western suburbs, let's start with Fowler. Fowler is a diverse western suburb seat with a large Vietnamese population. It's an interesting seat, as it was a safe Labour seat. At the last election, however, they tried to parachute in someone from the North Shore, Christina Keneally. This angered the electorate, and they instead went with the independent Dai Lee. Now, Labour have learned their lesson, running local candidate Tu Lee this time, and Dai Lee is on a thin margin. However, she is popular among her constituents, so Labour would need a really good ground campaign to win it back. I predict that the Independent will stay. The next seats are in Sydney's southern suburbs, Banks and Hughes. These are held by the Liberals, but not by large margins, especially thanks to redistributions. If Labor proved to be particularly strong, I could see these seats flipping. Hughes takes up the west part of the Sutherland Shire, which is strong Liberal territory, but the redistribution moves it to cover more of Liverpool, which is more commonly Labor territory. Banks, on the other hand, is on the north side of the river, which is more likely to lean Labour. At this point in time, I don't see either one changing. But if Labour gains further momentum, I could definitely see Banks flipping, and possibly Hughes too. From there, we venture into the western suburbs. These are in strong focus as they are mortgage belt seats that have definitely been feeling the cost of living pressure. However, with the polls as they are now, I don't see the swings to Liberal being large enough to change them. Werriwa in the southwest has the highest chance. Parramatta has a relatively slim margin, but I feel Peter Dutton's anti-white collar rhetoric could turn many voters off here. For Reid and Greenway, I just don't see enough reason that they would switch, but I could be wrong if Dutton's campaign ramps up. For now, I will keep them all in Labour's column. Let's now move out of Sydney, where the rest of the state of New South Wales still holds many key seats. North of Sydney are the Central Coast and Hunter Valley regions. These are blue-collar regions that were pro-Labor but have been slowly defecting to the right. Robertson is just on the border of Sydney and may even share some of the riskier white-collar demographics for Dutton. So I think it is the most likely to stay with Labor. Paterson, on the other hand, is further north and is the kind of peri-urban seat Dutton has in mind with his current campaign, though it is close to the very Labour-friendly Newcastle. But I'm going to predict that Liberal takes it. Hunter is harder to call, but given Labour's stronger margin and the current polls, I believe they will keep it. Further afield, we have one of the country's most marginal seats, Gilmore. Gilmore is in the south. A bit like the Central Coast and Hunter seats, it has many blue-collar workers, but the Labour brand has traditionally been quite strong in the southern region, and the surrounding areas do lean Labour. I find this one really tough to call. It is very marginally Labour, and Peter Dutton's message may pull through here, and I'm betting that they will. Still, a strong Labour campaign could see them keep it. The other seats are potential crossbench challengers. Kalpa in the north has a returning Teal challenger named Kaz Heiss. The area was affected by Cyclone Alfred, and that may make them more willing to go with her this time around. And I'm going to predict it for her, but this is not a strong prediction. Richmond is further north and has swung strongly to Labour. But there is a Green challenge that might pull through. But I'm going to have to see good Greens campaigning before I hand it to them. Then there is Calais, which is in the west. It was won by the National Party in 2022, but their popular MP, Andrew Gee, resigned from the party to run as an independent. Will his name carry the seat? Or will the Nationals win it back? It will definitely be a race to watch, but for now, I'm going to give it to the Nationals. So that is New South Wales. The other state to watch is Victoria, and particularly Melbourne. Melbourne generally leans left more than other cities in Australia, but Victoria's state Labor government has declined in popularity recently, so it's seen as prime ground for the Liberal Party's campaign. The inner suburbs of Melbourne hold 2 Teal seats, which might be competitive given their relatively narrow margins. Both Monique Ryan of Kooyong and Zoe Daniel of Goldstein have been popular, so I don't see them changing, especially not Goldstein. Elsewhere, the northern Melbourne division of Wills could see a win by the Greens over Labour. In fact, I will even give it to them for now, given that Labour's controversial environmental stance on Tasmania may not play well here. Whether it does flip will depend on the strength of the Greens campaign. Macnamara in the south is one of the big three-way races. While it is generally a left-leaning seat, it has a sizable Jewish population, and while other seats are shielded from the Liberal Party's campaigning by the Teals, this seat may attract some voters on that basis. I still believe the left will win out, but the shift to put the Greens in front of Labour is not that high. I would say, however, that Labour would pull through here unless the Greens run a really good campaign. Head into the outer suburbs of Melbourne, however, and competition gets fierce. There are 7 seats in the middle and outer suburbs of Melbourne, with narrow margins, and given Labour's deteriorating reputation, it was thought they would all swing hard to the coalition, and they still might. However, with the current stumbles of the Liberal Party, Labour has a chance to fight back. Menzies, Deakin and Casey are very marginally Liberal seats. Labour could have a very good night and take them from the Liberal Party, but at the moment, I believe they will hold. The other 4 seats are held by thin margins by the Labour Party and are going to be intensely targeted by the Liberals. Chisholm has a large Chinese population that can favour Liberal politics, but the area itself is generally in the middle suburbs and it may be now more inclined to vote Labour. I think it will be very close, but gun to my head, I think Labour will hold on to it. Aston is more traditionally Liberal, but was won by Labour in a by-election during their honeymoon period. If any of these seats swung back, I expect it would be this one. Dunkley will likely to see a swing toward the Liberals, but I feel their margin is strong enough given current polling. So for now, I predict Labour will get it. McEwen is an interesting seat. It may be a bellwether for the entire election and go where the country goes. The south of the division contains Labour heartland, North Melbourne populations, but the north is more likely to vote to the right. So it really depends on the strength of the respective campaigns. For now, I believe that Labor will retain it. The only Victorian key seat outside of a Greater Melbourne is Wannon to the west. There was a tight race last time around between the Liberal Party and independent Alex Dyson, and given the capture of semi-urban areas due to a redistribution that may be less friendly to the Liberal Party, it may be his seat this time. While New South Wales and Victoria are the biggest battlegrounds, there are enough key seats up north in Queensland that could have an impact. The inner suburbs of Brisbane have freeway races that the Greens are vying to fend off challengers from the Liberals and Labor, both of whom have previously had stakes in the area. These seats are Brisbane, Griffith, and Ryan. Now, my understanding seems to be quite different from the pundits. In my view, Ryan is weakest for the Greens, and I could see this falling to Labor or even the Liberals. Whilst I believe that the Greens will hold on to Brisbane and Griffith, especially Griffith given the high profile of the MP Max Chandler Mather, Labor seems to be more focused on taking Griffith and Brisbane back. In any case, these three seats will be good races to watch to see how well the Greens have been going in Brisbane. Going out of the inner city to the Greater Brisbane region in general, the Greens have another target in Moreton, in the southern suburbs. However, the Greens haven't had a huge surge in popularity recently, with a middling performance in the state election for Queensland last November. With a 9.1% margin, I feel Labor will hold this one. The other four seats in the region, Dickson, Longman, Bonner, and Blair, are held on close enough margins to warrant a look. But given the current polls, I believe they won't flip unless either party exceeds expectations. But there is one seat here that is definitely worth watching, and that is Dickson. Do you know why? Because it is held by the Prime Minister hopeful, Peter Dutton himself. He holds the seat by a meagre 1.7%. And, while I don't think it's likely that the Liberals would win the election without him, his performance in his own seat might be a good barometer of his personal performance, and if he does a poor enough job, he may even lose his seat along with the whole election. I'm going to be nice though and give him his seat in my prediction. Otherwise, there are some seats in the north of the state that Labor may have a chance of seizing. These divisions have small cities and large Indigenous communities that tend to favour the Labor Party, in amongst towns which lean towards the coalition. Leichhardt, up in the north, is held by the Liberals by only 3.4%. It has had a lock on it by its popular Liberal MP Warren Entsch. Now he is retiring, Labor has a chance to close the margin and win. Flynn, further south of the city, has a similarly small margin of 3.8% towards the Nationals. I still believe the coalition will hold both of these seats, but they are worth keeping an eye on, particularly Leichhardt. And lastly, we move on to the rest of the country, but last definitely doesn't mean least. There are definitely some seats to watch. Let's first move to the Northern Territory, which is thought to be safe Labor traditionally, but this year both of its electorates are in play. Similarly to the North Queensland seats we discussed, the Northern Territory has a strong Labor vote in the Indigenous communities, but leans to the coalition in the towns. Concerns about crime have weakened Labor's brand in towns, which was reflected in a loss for the party in the Territory elections last year. Lingiari covers the Northern Territory outside of Darwin, and it holds a perilous margin of 1.7%. Lingiari is unique in the Australian landscape, as turnout matters here. In most other places, compulsory voting means you can count on people turning out, but some of the communities here are so remote that turnouts can be depressed significantly. There are signs that the Australian Electoral Commission are working hard to ensure that everyone gets the opportunity to vote, so despite the razor-thin margin, I believe that Labor will hold the seat. The division of Solomon, which basically covers Darwin, We'll likely see a swing against it due to the crime concerns of the community, but I believe that they are strong enough to withstand the 8.4 swing required. Next, we move on to the two other capital cities that we have encountered. Well, there is Canberra, but they remain firmly solid Labour, so there are no marginal seats there. Perth and Adelaide both contain marginal seats, but they bring good tidings for Labour, as Labour's brand is quite strong in these states. Labour recently repeated a landslide victory over the Coalition in Western Australia, which bodes well for their chances. Tangney and the new seat of Bullwinkle are prime targets for the Liberals, but Labour are on solid ground, and at this point I believe that they will get them. Labour may even be able to take the marginal Liberal seat of Canning, but their incumbent MP is popular, so I'm not counting on it right now. On the independent front, the Liberals hope to take back Curtin from the Teal, Kate Cheney. They probably have a better chance here than any other incumbent Teal seat, but I don't think that they will pull through given their weak standing in WA. Moore is another interesting place. The Liberals face challenges not only from Labour, but also from the former Liberal MP who is now running as an independent, Ian Goodenough. This is a real wildcard, but I'm going to play it safe and keep it for the Liberal Party. But, given those margins and the dynamics, it's really anyone's game. Adelaide has two key seats, and one of them is the most likely Labour gain in the country, the seat of Sturt, which is held by a paltry 0.5% by the Liberals, and given the popularity of SA Premier Peter Malinauskas and the demographics of the region, I can definitely see it flipping. Boothby is held by the Labour Party on a small 3.3% margin, but again, given the circumstances in South Australia, I believe it will hold. And finally, there is one seat in Tasmania that is up for grabs. That is the seat of Lyons, and it's perilous for Labour as it is held on a razor-thin margin and a retiring MP. Fortunately, they have chosen a high-profile replacement, Rebecca White, who was a state party leader and a winner in the state elections. I am not too confident in this prediction, but with their choice of candidate and Labour's choice to support the aquaculture industry in the state, they may just hold on. So, those are the seats to watch and my predictions. Based on my predictions, Labour will get a grand total of 75 seats, with 57 going to the Coalition, 4 to the Greens, 2 to minor parties, and 12 to independents, including 9 Teals. This isn't such a dramatic change from the current Parliament, but if my predictions are accurate, Labour would be pushed into a slight minority government. However, I should point out that anything can happen. Labour does potentially have majority government in its sights as well. But, on the other hand, the Coalition could come up from behind and secure a minority or even majority government. The election is far from decided this time, and the campaign will matter for voters. Early voting starts on the 22nd of April, and I will have a look and update my predictions around then. If you have any insights into the key seats, please let me know in the comments below. For now, thank you and have a good day.